Hey guys, Magna back for more tutorials. Today let's talk a little bit about harassment in Protoss versus Zerg. We're going to talk about some special harassment type of builds that you can run, when to harass if your opponent is showing some times when they'll be very vulnerable, and some other useful applications because it's not really always about killing workers or killing tech and stuff like that. It can have some other applications that you might not be thinking of, so let's just watch a couple of games here and we'll talk about it as we go. First one we're going to watch is SOS versus Sue. And this was one of the biggest beatdowns I think I've seen in a long time. And the fact that it came against Sue is just crazy because Sue is really one of the best Zergs by a huge margin, making the GSL finals 3 times in a row. And SOS especially is one of those players that runs kind of weird stuff. So there's a lot of decisions that he makes in this game that are really interesting that I wanted to talk about and kind of showcase here. SOS is going Nexus first, which is fairly greedy. And maybe into probably a gateway. No, forge in the main. So, okay. Just a pretty greedy Nexus first, forge in the main. This will mostly be to maybe try and cannon rush stuff like this. And this is one of the ways you can start to set up your harassment in the early part of the game. Sometimes you'll get caught with this, so if that's the case, you can just cancel it. But the idea with a lot of cannon rush openers, they can just be for harassment. And if they don't have spotting with overlords or with other units, you can see the vision of this hatchery only extends about a tiny bit beyond the hatch, so they can't see very far. And you can set up cannons kind of back in areas that can be protected by the minerals or the gas geyser and stuff like that. So this is all fairly common stuff that you'll see in this matchup from time to time. I think Sue's actually going to scout this out. So you see him coming over, yeah, he knows what's going on. So worst case scenario, you lose 100 minerals from the pylon, but they're losing time attacking the pylon with mining anyway, so basically an equal trade. So that's another option you can run. We're not going to talk about cannon rushing too much just because it's a little bit of a gimmicky strategy and can kind of put players in a bad spot a lot of the time. So Sue deals with that just fine. SOS just continuing his opener here, just grabbing a gateway, putting up a zealot and a mothership core, or rather a cybernetics core, not a mothership core. Just to complete his wall here, does have a cannon. He's going to open Stargate really quickly, and the type of builds that SOS likes to do are Void Rays, a lot of Charge Zealots, and a lot of Archons, and he uses it to really great effect. I'm not sure why this works so well, to be totally honest, because this is a really hard style to run, and he just makes people look bad with this type of build. So this is a build that you can kind of experiment with if you wanted to get some ideas. One of the ways you can definitely get some harass off in the early game is with these Stargate units, whether it's with Phoenix or with Oracles, and just fly in there and try to kill stuff. For right now, though, he's just trying to kill the Overlord, and that will be annoying. If there's any other Overlords or stuff around the map, then you can go ahead and take those out with the Phoenix as well. So it does have long-term application. Just going to go straight into a fast third here, and like we talked about, he will be eventually making Void Rays, so he's getting that out as well. No Mothership Core or anything, so again, he's just kind of taking a risk here, adding a second Stargate, and also the +1 attack. And he's going to start harassing really quickly based upon what he scouts. So you definitely do need to know the different timings that you can scout, or rather different timings you can harass. And a lot of times you can harass when they're just adding on a lot of really greedy tech. So if they're adding on super fast spires or super fast infestation pits for things like swarm hosts, those are all times when you can usually get a lot of harassment damage done because they want to get straight into their heavy level tech, and there'll be little windows open in which you will be able to pull them apart with little timing. So sending out his first Void Ray here just to clear the tower and just to see what's going on. There's the Twilight Council, as we'll definitely be following up with Charge. Like I said, I don't know how he really makes this stuff work because I have played around a lot with this type of idea, and it's fairly sensitive to a lot of timings, so just kind of run this type of idea at your own risk. But if they are going for swarm hosts or something really greedy like mutas, and we're seeing even both of those come up at the same time, and you can scout that, then you can start to get really annoying with your harassment, and especially with the Void Rays and the Mothership Core. That's a unit combination that's really strong at sniping hatcheries, and that's mostly what we're going to see the harassment focused around this game. So SOS should know what's going on. He's had quite a bit of time to scout here and figure out what's happening. He hasn't really seen any units. Going to send his first few Void Rays up and cancel this base here with just these 3 Void Rays. And if they had Hydras out or something by now, then you'd usually want to have your Mothership Core nearby so you could recall and just go back home in case you have trouble against something like this. But we do see that getting canceled right now. And you can constantly multi-prong with things like this as well. So he has a small force here. Void Rays are trying to re-cancel the third. Now he's starting to attract the attention of the army. On the other side, he does have a Phoenix spotting for army units. He does have a pylon ready to warp in. So he's really just getting set up everywhere to go into a much more committed harassment. So this tiny force over here, if this force happens to get surrounded or attacked, then he can always recall back home with his mothership core. His few Void Rays over here can be constantly trying to re-snipe bases, or they can fly into the main. And this is all really going to work out well because all he has on the map are Zerglings, which can be dealt with fairly easily with at least a couple of Archons, which he does have right here. So he can pick that fight. But most importantly, the fact that all the money is invested in his swarm host right now means that he can only really be in one place at a time. So if you have two forces on the map and he can only cover one of them, then that's a point where you can start to pick him apart because he can't be everywhere at the same time. So he's going to fight just a little bit, doesn't want to take any damage from the Locust. Void Rays in the meantime are flying over to the right just to try to snipe whatever they can. And again, you don't have to commit with either army. If you want to just walk away, you can. Void Rays just get charged up here, and if they can focus down the lair, then that's going to really stifle the mining and the tech force soon. So he's going to get that lair, and that's really, really irritating. In the meantime, this force did get into a little bit of trouble, so I think it either recalled or it walked back home. Void Rays are still out on the map, and this is the type of thing where if they want to be really greedy with maybe roach play or something like that, you can kind of punish them for not having a response to these flying units. So it seems pretty simple, but you will run across this every once in a while. And the response here from Sue is just to try and stay on queens to push this stuff away, but the queens are still relatively immobile, and you can abuse that quite a bit. So behind this, he is adding on a robo, second robo that is, and a Colossus Bay to start responding to the swarm host, because he won't be able to do this forever. There will eventually be a point where he should be able to, or Sue should be able to stabilize a little more. So he's sending out this force once again with the mothership core. If it gets into trouble, he can recall pretty much any time. The Void Rays are back in the main base, and he even has a warp prism over here so that he can kind of reinforce and continue the harassment. So Zealots are killing the Spore Crawlers. Void Rays killing the Corruptors right now. He has a second force heading down towards the third base, and he can recall if he ever gets into trouble here, but this is enough of a force to definitely kill this hatchery and kill a lot of drones in the meantime. So this is just a perfect example of you can specifically run builds to try and do stuff like this, but this is mostly because of the tech that Sue has just really not being able to handle this type of multi-pronging this early in the game. So this goes on for a little while, and it's pretty much more the same stuff. SOS just continues to pick them apart with attacks on the left side, attacks on the right side. You can see the Warp Prism is still warping stuff in, and I think we've already seen like 4 or 5 hatcheries killed this game, and that's pretty crazy to see that happen. Yeah, Queen's transfusing here, but it's going to be to no avail eventually. So yeah, he does go ahead and get that. In the meantime, if you're at least responding to the tech that you see on the map in some way or another, then you should be fine as long as you're keeping his mining down. We'll also note that the supplies do favor Sue just a little bit here, but this is going to start getting really out of control if he can't even mine off of 2 of the bases that he was mining on before. And this base is still very soft, so he could fly his Void Rays over here or do a warp-in over there fairly easily and deal a lot of damage to that base pretty quickly. And his unit composition is starting to morph into something more normal. So from this point, yeah, he does continue to tear them apart, but it's pretty much more of the same stuff. By the way, he does have another base over here, so this is kind of cool. He recalled his probes over here. But yes, SOS just playing a brilliant game in this one, and this one really stuck out from the season it was played as being a crazy harassment-based PvZ. And yeah, it's definitely something you could explore on your own and try to do stuff like that. And most of the reason why this works is that he has either flying units or the mothership core with his non-flying units, so he can retreat no matter what's going on. So that was an interesting game. Let's take a look at a little more of a standard game and kind of see the ways that harassment can benefit, assuming you're not just going straight for it. It's kind of a little bit of a side effect. So this is going to be Oz versus Revival. And Revival's known for playing fairly weird, and same with Oz. And we'll have to see what kind of prompts him to start harassing here. And one thing that's going to be really important with harassment is you can use it to make the Zerg have to move his army around. And so, for example, let's kind of talk about this a little bit. Let's say the Zerg army is like out here or something. And let's say yours is nearby, say right here. And if you really want to get this position, you can harass back here and maybe throw away about 10 zealots. That'll force his army to move, and then you can get a lot better position on one of his bases, maybe a base over here or something. So there's a lot of opportunity just to use harassment to try and move his army around. And it's again the philosophy of Zerg armies are going to have a hard time covering more than one place at a time, especially against your units, which will be more powerful as they are more expensive per unit. So it takes quite a bit of attention from the Zerg to respond to Protoss harassment all over the map. And even just moving the army out of position and getting them to engage back into you when you have great position, like say if you're standing on top of this ramp and you force them to engage up into you because you're able to move them out of the way with a harassment or something, those are things that you should be thinking about in the late game. If you're having trouble breaking bigger Zerg armies, position is really everything in these types of fights, and you can gain a lot of position by doing stuff like this. We're seeing a little bit of harassment here out of Oz. So basically he just opened up with a gateway expand. He does have his Nexus mining right now. He chrono boosted a couple of Zealots and a Stalker, and he just walked them across the map. And this is going to be useful because at this stage of the game, the Zerg just wants to produce stuff. They don't want to have to make units and have to respond to anything you're doing. They just want to sit there and make drones. So just sending out these few units, they're probably not going to kill a whole lot, and if they do, then great. But most of the time they won't, and the whole idea is just to force them to produce extra units that they might not want to, and to try and keep the worker count fairly equalized throughout the game. So you can see it's 32 to 31 right now, and Oz is really going to hold this lead for a little bit just because he sent these first few random units out, and they will die and they won't kill too much, but at the same time it's forcing Revival to have to produce extra units. So super early harassments like this are totally fine as long as you don't throw your units away. If you can keep this Stalker alive for quite a while, that'll be really good as well. You can even rally your Mothership Core forward, and once again, if you get into too much trouble, you can recall if you have the energy here. But these really fast early move-outs can be really strong and kind of can bother the Zerg a lot. And now the Stalker and the Mothership Core are fairly unchecked. As long as he micros well against these Zerglings, then he's going to force Revival to have to produce even more. And back at home, there's a little bit of a counterattack of Zerglings coming up, only 3 of them. He can easily wall this off though, and force field with the Sentry if he really needs to. He might actually miss this, and yeah, so that's a little bit unfortunate. But even still, I mean, the worker counts are starting to go into Revival's favor a little bit more, but the fact that he was able to at least slow the Zerg down and stay fairly equal throughout this phase of the game is really, really strong. It's not something you see too terribly often, and it also allows him to take a safe third base if the Zerg is so worried about units back at home. So, kind of some interesting, very different plays here from Oz. And it's something you will want to keep on your mind if you're having trouble with Zergs that just endlessly drone up in the mid-game here, and you can't really stay on top of that. So Oz is going to go into a Robo and a Forge after his expansion, all fairly normal stuff. You can go Immortals after this. You probably want to transition fairly smoothly, like maybe something with Blink will be a nice buffer here. But on this Robo, you can always produce that Warp Prism and get it over there. And Revival, showing the Infestation Pit right now, this could be once again for Swarm Hosts. And against Swarm Hosts especially, is you have to harass them, because if you just try to attack into a big entrenched position of Swarm Hosts, you're going to have a really hard time breaking that. So that's going to be a lot of the times what provokes a lot of this endless harassment type of style, is if somebody starts to show Swarm Hosts, and the Protoss just says, alright, I don't ever want to really engage into that, so I'll just engage where the Swarm Hosts aren't, and constantly bother them until they run out of mining bases, and allows me enough time to switch into a unit composition that's going to be good for me. So, this common theme between the two games is definitely the faster Swarm Hosts. So, they're coming up right now, everything's starting to get established, Oz getting everything together. By the way, there is a couple of Hallucinated Phoenix here, just for scouting. There was a pylon over here that could have warped stuff in. There's even more pylons coming down, and if you can constantly keep a probe out on the map, putting down pylons at random points, that'll give you nice reinforcement areas to maybe even reinforce into a battle, but partially to allow you to get decent harassment on their bases throughout the game. So you don't have to be like, I want to harass, and then pull off a whole bunch of units and have them walk all the way around the map in order just to get to a base, where you could just warp them in over here. So keeping a random probe out on the map and just making pylons from time to time can be a very strong thing. You obviously don't want to make like 50 pylons out of the map. Just one here and there, just to give you extra reinforcement points, is going to be really strong. And as soon as Oz knows that the Swarm Hosts are coming up, he starts a Warp Prism immediately. So you really want Colossus against this, and you can usually go double Robo Colossus. But if you can fit in a Warp Prism, then if the Swarm Hosts try to get too aggressive and burrow like right here, like we're seeing right now, then there's basically nothing back at here. So you can definitely harass that way. So we're seeing the Warp Prism come up. Colossus range is on the way. Blink is on the way as well, just to protect against those locusts the best you can. You don't want to take too much damage from that. Obviously, this is the main priority, but you need to find a way to buy time. And if you can force him to go home because you're harassing back at his base, and that'll be really nice. Where did his warp prism go? I haven't seen it in a little while. There it is. Okay. So he's flying it in right now, and yeah, this is exactly what you want to do, is just warp stuff in right away while you're trying to deal with the swarm hosts. And like we talked about a little bit specifically in the swarm host video, is that they're going to usually have support for these. So if Revival pulls all these back, these might leave the swarm hosts by themselves, and that might be a good opportunity for you to maybe blink on top of them or just charge them down with your Colossus. And if you can get on top of these swarm hosts when there's no support, then that's going to be a great trade for you. So this is what I mean about trying to move the army out of position a little bit, which is definitely what these little warpins and stuff will do sometimes. So that's the whole idea here from Oz, and if he's able to get through these locusts, now he has to give up his position or lose his swarm hosts, and Oz kind of broke that, and all it really took him was one warp prism that didn't even warp anything in, because Revival started to react to it. So there's a lot of really, really different things, and you have to kind of think in a roundabout way about dealing with swarm hosts especially, and dealing with Zerg armies that are just really hard to engage into. So here's that pylon coming into play, reinforcing over here on the side. And now he's got this great position that otherwise he was kind of locked back into his base because of that little bit of warp prism harassment. Now that he's out on the map, if you're going to be this far forward, the Zerg is going to be kind of freaking out, and they'll have all their stuff at the front trying to deal with this big push, because if they don't, they're going to die. And you can kind of abuse that a little bit by warping in back here. And you don't necessarily have to attack. You can just kind of have your army sitting out here on the map in this position. If you get overrun, you can recall, but it does force them to have to split stuff off to deal with this. And you can do this constantly. You don't have to just do it once and go back home, as long as you can keep the warp prism alive. And on the other side, the army can do decently against the rest of it. So there's not a whole lot you usually need to monitor with these type of harassment warp-ins, as they usually just do the job for you. You can typically just warp them in, kind of send them somewhere, and they'll do the rest. So Oz is really going to start ripping Revival apart, considering his army back here can deal pretty well with the swarm hosts and the rest of the support. And there's really nothing back here to answer this harassment during the entire time. So Revival has to make a choice. He either has to just straight up give up this base because he'll have to retreat with his army, or he's going to have to give up this base because he just can't deal with it. So harassment coming down all over the place, and you'll notice that Oz isn't even reinforcing this army anymore, because he could have recalled at any time, but he did, I think, lose his mothership core already. But either way, this kind of damage is worth it as long as he can keep his stalkers alive, and he can just blink them off the side or whatever, go back home anytime, and he's even just peeling off a second group of stalkers to try and harass. So look at this insane harassment right now. There's a warp prism in the main. There's still some zealots here in the main. There's zealots killing this base down here, and he's killed a ton of workers, by the way. 28 workers dead. There's a third prong with these stalkers heading over to this side, and a fourth prong that's even killing workers over at this base. So this is craziness, and if you can keep up on this, and this is a really strong style, it really puts your gateway units to good use, since they're usually not that great in battles. It kind of sets them at points where the Zerg is forced to deal with all four of these prongs at the same time. If he doesn't do it properly, then he's going to lose a lot. So, yeah, like I said, you can just blink off the side here, as Oz is just going to save the bulk of his army while the rest of it's over here harassing. So there's a base over here getting harassed. Roaches finally start to clean this up, but then all of a sudden stalkers show up, and once again, if you ever get into too much trouble, you can blink these away, which is their whole point. Somebody that also does this style really well is Stork. I couldn't find any good replays of him because he wasn't playing typically well, or rather overly well in this season. So if you ever see Stork playing, that's somebody to look out for if you want to find more harassment opportunities. But yeah, it finally gets cleaned up. Oz taking a fourth base here. Decent timing, 16 minutes. And he's done a lot of damage. He's really reduced the worker count. Didn't really kill any bases, but the worker count, he's killed 28, so that means Zerg has to rebuild them all. He's only on 49 right now. So that is incredibly annoying for a Zerg player by this stage of the game. He's continuing his transitions here, and you can start to transition into things like Void Rays if you want to do more flybys and stuff like that. But the damage is really done. This game does go on for quite a little while longer, but the bulk of the harassment has already taken place, and he's gotten a pretty decent advantage by this point, at least in worker count. His army is a little bit soft right now, but he can continue to buy time with these Blink Stalkers, and a lot of the army's invested into Corruptors, which he can easily control against with the Stalkers. So I think we'll go ahead and just call that good. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Leave me a comment if you have any questions, and there's also more Protoss tutorials down in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you like the video as well. That really helps me out. Otherwise, I'll be back with more very soon, so check it out, and I'll see you later.